town had never seen anything like it. Not in all its years of dust storms, whispered gossip, and quiet lives hidden behind wooden doors. People talked about many things, but this spread like wildfire before the sun had even reached its highest point. At 19, Emily Carter stood in the middle of that town, her hands clenched tightly in front of her heart, pounding so loudly she could barely hear the murmurs around her. She wasn't dressed like a bride. Not really. No flowers, no joy, no soft smiles. Just a simple, worn dress and eyes that carried more fear than hope. This wasn't a choice. It never had been. "It's for the best," her uncle had said that morning, his voice firm like there was no room for argument. "You'll have a roof, food, a purpose." A purpose. The words still echoed in her mind like something heavy and unwanted. She swallowed hard, forcing herself not to cry here, not in front of all these people watching her like she was something to be judged, traded, decided. She hadn't even seen him yet, the man she was being given to. All she knew was his name, Daniel Hayes, a rancher, a widower, and a father of 5 children. 5. The number alone made her chest tighten. She was 19. She barely knew how to take care of herself, let alone 5 children who had already lost their mother. But none of that mattered. Not to the town, not to her uncle, and soon not to the man she was about to meet. A horse stopped in front of the small gathering, the sound cutting through the noise like a command for silence. Everyone turned, and there he was, Daniel Hayes. He climbed down slowly, his movements steady, controlled, like a man used to carrying weight no one else could see. He wasn't old, but life had carved lines into his face that made him seem older. His eyes scanned the crowd briefly before landing on her. And in that moment, everything went still. Emily felt her breath catch as his gaze met hers. It wasn't cold, it wasn't cruel, but it wasn't warm either. It was tired, like he had already seen too much to feel anything strongly anymore. He stepped closer, stopping a few feet away from her. Neither of them spoke for a moment, because what was there to say? This wasn't a meeting. This wasn't a beginning. It was an arrangement. "You're Emily," he said finally, his voice low, rough. She nodded, barely trusting her voice. "Yes." Another silence. People around them shifted, waiting, watching, judging. Daniel glanced at her uncle, then back at her, something unreadable passing through his eyes. "You understand what this is?" he asked. Emily hesitated, then nodded again, even though she wasn't sure she truly did. "Yes." That was enough for him. He turned slightly, addressing the man beside them. "Then it's done. Just like that. No ceremony, no vows, no promises. Just done." And with that, Emily's life changed forever. The ride to the ranch was quiet, the kind of quiet that pressed down on you, making every thought louder than it should be. Emily sat stiffly on the horse behind him, her hands gripping tightly, unsure where to place them or what to say. Daniel didn't speak either. He didn't look back. He just rode forward, like this was another task to complete, another burden to carry. When the ranch finally came into view, Emily's heart sank slightly. It was bigger than she expected, but worn down, tired, like it had been holding on for too long. The fences needed repair, the barn leaned slightly to one side, and the house looked like it had forgotten what it meant to be a home. Children stood outside when they arrived, 5 of them, just like she had been told. They didn't run forward, they didn't smile. They just stood there, watching, silent and guarded. The oldest boy, maybe 14, had his arms crossed, his expression hard. The youngest, a little girl no more than 5, clung to the side of the house, half hiding behind it. Daniel dismounted first, then helped Emily down. His touch brief, careful, like he wasn't sure what to do with her either. "This is Emily," he said simply. The children didn't respond. The oldest boy spoke first, his voice sharp. "We don't need her." The words hit harder than anything else that day. Emily felt her throat tighten, but she forced herself to stay still. Daniel's expression didn't change. "This isn't a discussion." "It should be," the boy shot back. "She's not our ma." A heavy silence followed. The younger children shifted uncomfortably, the tension thick between them. Emily looked down for a moment, then slowly raised her eyes to meet the boy's gaze. Her voice when she spoke was quiet, but steady. "I know." That caught him off guard. He frowned slightly, unsure how to respond. "I'm not here to replace anyone," she added softly. "I wouldn't even know how." The honesty in her words softened something just a fraction, but not enough to change everything. Not yet. Daniel watched this exchange closely, something shifting in his own expression, but he said nothing. He simply gestured toward the house. "Come inside." Emily stepped forward, the weight of 5 pairs of eyes following her every move. The moment she crossed the doorway, she felt it. The emptiness. The silence that lingered in every corner like something had been lost and never found again. The house was messy, not in a careless way, but in a way that spoke of exhaustion, of too much to handle, and not enough strength to keep up. Emily set her small bag down slowly, unsure where she belonged in this place. Daniel stood near the door, his presence filling the room even in silence. "There's work here," he said finally. "It won't be easy." She nodded. "I didn't expect it to be." He studied her for a moment, as if trying to understand something he couldn't quite place. "You can leave if you want," he added unexpectedly. "No one's stopping you." That surprised her. She looked at him confused. "You said it was done." "It is," he replied. "But I won't force you to stay." Emily glanced around the room, then at the children who still watched her like she didn't belong. She thought about the town, about her uncle, about the life waiting for her if she walked away. There was nothing there. Nothing but the same emptiness dressed differently. She took a slow breath. "I'll stay." Daniel nodded once as if that settled it, but something in his eyes lingered, a question maybe, or a doubt he didn't voice. The days that followed were harder than anything Emily had imagined. The children kept their distance. The oldest boy refused to speak to her at all. The younger ones watched her carefully, unsure whether to trust or reject her. She didn't push. She didn't try to force anything. She simply stayed. She cleaned the house little by little. She cooked meals even when no one thanked her. She listened more than she spoke. She learned their routines, their silences, their pain. Daniel noticed. He noticed everything, even when he said nothing. He noticed how she woke before sunrise to start the day, how she never complained, even when exhaustion showed in her eyes, how she treated the children with patience instead of authority. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the land, Emily sat on the porch, the youngest girl beside her quietly playing with a broken doll. It was the first time any of them had come close without being asked. Daniel stood in the doorway, watching something unfamiliar settling in his chest. The little girl looked up at Emily, hesitantly. "Are you going to leave too?" The question was soft, but it carried the weight of something much deeper. Emily's heart ached at those words. She shook her head gently. "No, I'm not going anywhere." The child studied her for a moment, then leaned slightly closer, not fully trusting yet, but no longer pulling away. Daniel looked away quickly, something tightening in his chest. He had seen many things in his life, loss, hardship, loneliness. But this quiet shift, this slow, fragile change, was something he hadn't expected. And he didn't know yet that the girl standing in his home, the one the town had whispered about, judged, dismissed, would soon change everything, not just for his children, but for him too. The days turned into weeks, and something quiet began to shift inside that worn ranch house. Not all at once, not in ways anyone could easily point to, but it was there, in the small moments, the kind most people would overlook. The youngest girl, Lily, no longer hid when Emily entered the room. She followed her, sometimes asking small questions, holding on to the edge of her dress like it made her feel safer. The middle children started sitting closer at the table, their silence less guarded, more uncertain than cold. Even the house itself seemed different. The floors cleaner, the windows open, the air lighter. Daniel noticed it every single day, even when he pretended not to. He noticed how the children laughed again, not loudly, not freely yet, but enough to remind him of something he thought was gone. He noticed how meals were no longer quiet battles but shared moments, even if words were few. And most of all, he noticed her. Emily. She never demanded anything, never tried to take a place that wasn't given. She simply showed up, again and again, like she had chosen this life instead of being forced into it. One evening, the oldest boy, Thomas, finally broke the silence. He stood in the doorway, watching Emily as she worked, his arms crossed, his expression still hard, but no longer closed. "Why are you doing all this?" he asked suddenly. Emily paused, turning to face him. "Doing what?" "Acting like you belong here." The words were sharp, but not cruel, just honest. She considered his question carefully before answering. "Because I do now." He frowned. "You didn't choose this." "No," she admitted, "but I chose to stay." That answer seemed to catch him off guard. He shifted slightly, unsure how to argue with something like that. "People leave," he muttered after a moment. "They always do." Emily's expression softened just a little. "Then maybe it's time someone didn't." Thomas didn't respond, but something in his posture changed. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of something else, something less resistant. From that day forward, things moved differently. Not easier, but more open. The walls didn't fall all at once, but cracks began to show. Daniel found himself speaking more, asking questions he had stopped asking years ago. He watched the way Emily handled the children, never forcing them, never raising her voice, but somehow reaching them in ways he hadn't been able to. Late one night, he found her sitting alone at the table, her shoulders slightly slumped, exhaustion finally catching up with her. "You should rest," he said from the doorway. She looked up surprised, then gave a small, tired smile. "I will." He stepped closer, hesitating before speaking again. "You don't have to do everything." She shook her head gently. "I know." "Then why do you?" Emily looked down at her hands for a moment, then back at him. "Because they deserve it." The simplicity of that answer struck him harder than anything else. He studied her quietly, trying to understand how someone so young carried so much without breaking. "And what about you?" he asked. She blinked slightly. "What about me? What do you deserve?" The question seemed to catch her off guard, like it wasn't something she had thought about in a long time. She didn't answer right away, and when she did, her voice was softer. "I don't know." That stayed with him long after she went to bed. The realization that no one had ever asked her that before, that she had spent her life being given to situations instead of choosing them, it unsettled him more than he expected. Time continued to move forward, carrying them with it. The ranch slowly came back to life, the repairs getting done, the land cared for, the house no longer feeling like a place holding on to loss, but something building towards something new. Then one day, everything changed again. The town came calling. It started with whispers, then visits, then questions. People suddenly interested in what was happening at the Hayes Ranch. Some came out of curiosity, some out of judgment, some out of disbelief. They had expected failure. They had expected the young girl to leave, or the family to fall apart even more. Instead, they found something they didn't understand. A home, laughter, children who looked happy, and a man who no longer seemed as broken as before. One afternoon, a group of townspeople stood near the fence, watching as Emily worked beside the children, teaching them, guiding them like she had always been there. "That can't last," one woman muttered. "She's too young." "She'll leave soon enough," another added. But Daniel heard them. He had been fixing the fence nearby, his hands going still as their words carried across the distance. He looked toward Emily, then at the children gathered around her, their faces lighter than he had seen in years. Something inside him hardened, not against her, but against them, against the doubt, the judgment, the idea that this, whatever it was, couldn't be real. He stood up straight, wiping his hands before walking toward the group, his presence enough to quiet them instantly. "If you've got something to say," he said evenly, "say it where it matters." The woman hesitated, then spoke. "We're just wondering how long this arrangement is supposed to last." Daniel didn't look away. "As long as it needs to." "She's just a girl," someone else added. "She won't stay." For a moment he didn't respond. Then he said something that even surprised himself. "She already has." The certainty in his voice left no room for argument. The group fell silent, unsure how to respond before eventually dispersing their whispers, fading as they left. Daniel turned back toward the house, his gaze finding Emily again. She had seen part of it, heard enough to understand. He walked over, stopping a few feet from her. "You don't have to prove anything to them," he said. She nodded slowly. "I know." "Then why do you care?" She looked at the children, then back at him. "Because they do." That was enough for him. No more questions, no more doubt. That night, as the sky darkened and the stars began to appear, the family sat together on the porch, something that had become a quiet routine. Lily leaned against Emily, her small hand gripping hers without hesitation now. The other children sat close, talking softly, even Thomas no longer standing apart. Daniel watched them all, his gaze lingering on Emily longer than he realized. She felt it eventually turning slightly to meet his eyes. There was a moment there, something unspoken passing between them, something neither of them had expected when this began. "Why did you really stay?" he asked quietly. She held his gaze, her answer steady. "Because they needed someone." He nodded slowly, then added softer. "And what about me?" The question surprised her. She studied him for a long moment, seeing past the quiet strength, past the distance he had carried for so long. She saw the man who had been trying to hold everything together alone, who didn't know how to ask for help, who didn't think he deserved it. Her voice when she answered was gentle, but certain. "You needed someone too." Something shifted in him, then something deep and undeniable. The kind of change that doesn't happen all at once, but once it starts, it doesn't stop. The night grew quieter, the world around them settling into peace for the first time in a long time. And in that moment, it became clear to all of them, in ways they couldn't fully explain, that this wasn't temporary. This wasn't an arrangement anymore. It was something real, something chosen, something built from nothing but patience, resilience, and a kind of love that doesn't demand, but stays. And the town that once whispered about the girl who was given away would soon be talking about something else entirely. How she became the heart of a family that was once falling apart. How she turned a broken house into a home. And how sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the strongest endings.